Welcome to Pagan Coffee Talk. Here are your hosts, Lady Alba and Lord Knight.
So, all right.
Myth, but we need anthropology.
Yeah. So,
If I said that right.
yeah. So, myth is great, but
Myth.
if you want to understand a people and their faith, you need anthropology. So, when I was a fledgling witch, neophyte.
Neophyte?
Yeah.
Many moons.
Yeah. You were very keen on pointing out all of the myths and legends that are bullshit.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. And I think one of the ones that shocked the class that I was in was, of course, Merlin and the Knights of the Round Table. And
It was completely made up.
right. And very few people, I feel like, know that. The Myths of Avalon, which is a phenomenal book, and
Wonderful movie. And
same thing. It's all the Lady of the Lake, right? It's, yeah,
I mean, don't get me wrong. There are probably certain aspects of this story
sure.
that used to be myths
Well,
in the ancient times that got sort of weaving into this.
well, it's what we know about a lot of biblical tales. It's what we know about a lot of mythology. It was originally based on something, some maybe real event or piece of information that they wanted to distribute to the populace. But, you know, they didn't have CNN.
No.
So,
Well, again, you have the Lady of the Lake, which to me is a reference to Danu, who is actual water.
but the idea becomes, right?
But it becomes the Lady of the Lake.
But you had to make stories interesting,
Oh,
right?
God, yes.
You had to make them catchy. You had to, like the Brothers Grimm, right? You didn't want children to talk to strangers and walk off into the woods. You gotta make it something to hold their attention.
Because kids don't listen to lectures.
No.
They listen to stories.
Right. And if those kids grow up believing those legends, those stories, what do? They tell them to their kids, who tell them to their kids, and it keeps on keeping on. But what I found, I guess, interesting early on was that understanding that we have to kind of take a look at the myth and then go, what came before it? What's underneath it? You were the first person to introduce me to the Picts.
Right.
I had never even heard the word Pict. I was like, what in the hell is this? And the fact that and if you don't know what it is, go look it up. I'm not going to ruin that part for you. You figure it out. But right, elves, fairies, sprites, brownies, what else?
Brownies.
Possibly leprechauns.
Leprechauns, all those
Changelings.
are all connected to a group of people, a tribe of people known as the Picts,
who were an early inhabitant
of the British Isles.
And I was like, are you freaking kidding me? Like, I had never heard of these people. And so, of course, then I mean, part of it was my studies. I had to do some research on them, but I took it a little bit further. And what I realized was I was like, okay, so now I'm studying a people and to get a better understanding of how they lived and their faith as a result of that. And, you know, in talking to a friend, she was like, oh, yeah, you're studying anthropology. And I was like, the hell, what? Because I never made that connection. And I was like, oh my God, that's exactly what it is.
Yes.
So you effectively become an archaeologist of people. And start looking at the who, the what, the why, and the when. And then the myths start to make an awful lot of sense.
Because once you start to understand how people live their lives, it's one thing for us to sit here. Me and you both come from a farming background.
You more so than me, but yeah, I got you. Yeah.
It's different when you're living in that lifestyle.
Yes.
Okay, it's different when you're there. Hence the reason why a lot of these anthropologists do that, where they're going to these older, tribes that have never had contact.
Oh, yeah.
Where they dress and act and behave and do exactly what they do, so they don't mess with the culture.
Even in modern times, so there's still people are fascinated with the Gullah of South Carolina, that coastal region where you have these people that are like a native tribe, and they are so insulated from modern life. They're still doing everything the way they did it hundreds of years ago. And this is taking place now in 2023, and people are still going to study, to learn, to understand about them, their language, they have a whole language, and people are like, what, in South Carolina? Yeah, this is like, yeah.
I mean, this is no different than the Mennonites.
Yes, the Amish. I mean,
we're talking about the same thing here. Now, again, what I always found interesting on myths and legends is, if you don't know what in the world you believe, you don't see those myths or those lessons in those myths.
If you say that again, if you don't know what you
believe in,
okay,
like, I can read a myth, like we're very big ponderance of keeping your word,
right?
So I can see that a lot in the myths that we tell. If I didn't believe in it, I wouldn't necessarily see it.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, because I mean, it's what I think most of us do. The Bible's a great example of this.
Right.
People take from it certain passages or certain ideas because that's a principle or a tenet of faith that they want to share.
Yes.
Yeah, because they believe so strongly in it.
And they believe that this passage illustrates what they believe the best.
Right. And then that gets spread. Absolutely. I totally agree with that.
And I think this is part of how myths are.
Yeah. And then you also have certain aspects of myth that were very practical for the time.
Exactly.
So we, as modern pagans, have a little bit of a duty to understand the difference so that we are practicing our religion in accordance with what we do actually believe and what is applicable to us today. So here's my best example on this, and I can't believe I'm going to use Chris Rock as an example, but why not?
Okay.
This is from an old special of his where he breaks down the reason why, biblically, the Jews were told not to eat pork and why pork became taboo. And he was like, yeah, because if all of a sudden your elders and your leaders were like, man, everybody's eating the pork and getting sick, something's going on, and
right.
we know the pigs are responsible. We just don't know how to get people to stop eating the pig. And all it takes is one guy to go, I got it. Tell him God said,
don't do it.
Don't eat the pig. And so then the swine becomes, right, banned. And there you go. And then you have generation upon generation upon generation, no pork. And he said in that special, today, and I don't remember what year it was, but, whatever. It's 2023. If you were lucky enough to have a pork chop put in front of you, bite the shit out of that motherfucker.
Thank you.
Because it's not the same logic.
Well, no, the reason most people believe it is because there is a particular bacteria and stuff. And if you do not cook it completely properly, it will make you sick and
absolutely
could kill you.
It's what we now know about salmonella and E. coli and all of the different, foodborne illnesses that can really fuck us up. But back then, they didn't know that.
Well, again, hence like the reason, like you were talking about with Jewish people, the separation. There's a lot of Jewish people that have 2 refrigerators. And,
yes, the Orthodox. Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of that. I mean, and I have, my Jewish friends are divided right down the middle. Some of them are like, give me all the bacon. And some of them are like, ooh, I can't have that
now, when we
because there's pork in it.
because when we cleaned houses, we've had a few Jewish
Yeah.
which some people actually had, like, and you're sitting back going, you almost have like two different kitchens.
Yes, and they do. They do. I had a friend who worked in a Jewish nursing home, and there were different refrigerators, and if a staff member put their lunch from home in the wrong refrigerator, the rabbi had to be called in to bless, cleanse, and consecrate everything before any of the residents could eat. It was a big deal. And I mean, hey, again, not trying to tear apart anybody's beliefs, and that's fine. But again, it's the why. Why is it like this? Where is the, do we really believe that God came down and said, don't eat the pork?
Or do we believe people kept on getting sick when eating the pork, and they were saying,
Right.
we got to stop this?
Right. Historically, we look back and we can see it. We can document it. We can look and go, oh.
I mean, because again, you got to remember, a lot of people forget, tribal life was on the edge at all times.
Always.
All right.
All it took was one disease, a case of diarrhea could wipe out hundreds of people.
I mean, because again, the diarrhea going through, and just even if it was just the hunters.
Yes.
But again, you got the hunters down for like 2 or 3 weeks, not bringing in fresh meat.
And that's a problem.
That's a problem.
And again, that's anthropology. That's that understanding of why people did what they did when they did it. And when we look at that throughout history, we see all these little components of every religion's belief system that was influenced by this.
Exactly.
So as modern pagans, we have to go, well, okay, gosh, I'm trying to think of like one of the Greek myths or the Roman myths that otherwise would be like a major influence on our lives. Okay, Bacchanalia.
Oh.
Right? So the Roman orgies that were so popular, okay? Now again, I go, okay, did the Romans just want to get a little freaky? So they were like, Bacchus said it's cool, let's do this.
No, but
You know,
a little
I
bit
don't
less than that.
know.
Considering he's supposed to be the god of wine.
The god of wine, yeah.
You
And
get a
good
little
times,
intoxicated.
yeah. So, I mean, and being Italian myself and coming from a long line of wine drinkers, I can see where first you got drunk and then you went, this guy is great. Right? Like, Bacchus is our dude.
This seems like a wonderful idea.
But Bacchanalia as a celebration in modern society, that's some risky shit. STIs, right? Diseases. I mean, infidelity, pregnancy. There's so many things that can be an issue that, you know what? The practice got abolished a long time ago. And I don't think that there's too many people out there right now who are going, man, I really wish we could bring back Bacchanalia. Like, like pining over the lost ritual.
Wait a minute. Now I'm going to say this, but we do have Mardi Gras.
We do have Mardi Gras. You're right. We have Carnival. We have other things, but they're tamer.
They're tamer.
By comparison. But,
What? No, I just want you to think you just refer to Mardi Gras as being tame.
I mean, compared to what I have read about the Romans, yeah. It's pretty freaking tame. And then there's slavery is another one, right? There's stories throughout mythology of slavery. Come on, we know that that's wrong. We know.
Well, I mean, you even had. Well, I mean, as far as that goes, even in the old days, you had philosophers like the great Plato and all that.
Oh yeah,
who could not envision a world without slavery.
Yes, and we've evolved. We've evolved so far past that,
right?
That we have to look at some of those things skeptically. And again, I think it's funny because pagans are very quick to do it with the Bible, right? We're very quick to point out, like, well, in Deuteronomy, and that's bullshit, and that's not, and then, no.
And don't get me taught on the she bears.
Yeah, like we're very fast to kind of be assholes about the Christian tenets, but then when it comes to our own, we're not stopping to go, oh, yeah, that's a little messed up. Yeah, maybe that's
I mean, really, you got to keep a boom, and you got to get into a bag and be beat to death.
That's it. I mean, and then people wonder why there's still the sacrifice of animals, why that's still such a big, because back in the day it was necessity. It was absolutely how you survived. And yes, you had a harvest, you had a slaughter, you thanked the gods, you spilled the blood. We don't have to do that anymore.
I'm going to put it to you this way, and I could be wrong here. There was a lot of things that our priests and priestesses saw in society that were bad. We had to put a good spin on.
Correct.
Because it had to get done.
Of course. I mean, let's look at the maypole, right?
Right.
How did we go from dancing around the big penis and what were basically coming of age children going off and fornicating to now what is little kids dancing around a light pole with a bunch of ribbon.
Exactly.
Because it had to. Because we, that's...
Because we needed to bring these subjects up to the kids going, hey, here's what's going to be happening.
Yes. And can we still celebrate the maypole, and can we still have that as part of Beltane and May Day festivities? Of course we can. But we're not doing it the way they did it.
No. There's not always a happy time at the end of our...
No. Just, Burning Man and, Wicker Man, that whole thing. I'm like, you do realize that once upon a time it was filled with people and it was lit on fire.
Well, just the guy that they found buried at Stonehenge that was strangled, hid, and his throat cut.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many tales of the warriors being found with even the pharaohs, right? They were buried with their dogs, their kids, their slaves, their wives. I mean, can you imagine, like, well, my husband's dead. Okay, I guess it's my turn. Like, everything he had went with him.
Well, I mean, there was I forgot which culture it is, but they believed if your head wasn't attached to your body, you couldn't rest well. So they would always decapitate all their enemies before they buried them.
Oh, that's fun.
And that's how they found out that there were enemies, because the head would always be severed
right.
somewhere else.
Yipes. Yeah, I forgot about that one. That's true. But again, these things turn into other stories. And if we don't pick them apart, we can't just blindly follow them. We can't just read the mythology and go, well, yeah, I follow the Greek pantheon and traditions, and I consider myself Dianic. Well, that's great, but you also have to apply that to modern society.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, again, we don't go through a lot of the... I do not think any modern woman in Western society is going to go into the bleeding huts.
Yeah,
I don't see that happening.
No, I don't see that happening either. Yeah, you're right. I mean, maybe, but like at the same time,
nobody has a fear that your secretary is on her monthly cycle is suddenly going to endow the computer with special properties to where nobody else could use it but her.
But at the same time, you have retreats, right, all over the country where people do sometimes engage in these kinds of things that are very archaic. And it's like, why? What benefit are you actually getting from it? Oh, yeah, I'm going to go into my cycle, so I'm going to go spend 7 days in the woods in a yurt. Okay.
Okay.
Why?
Why?
What purpose does it serve now? If you just want to go on a meditation retreat, knock yourself out.
Right.
But, yeah.
Go get a massage.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
a
come
facial.
On, have a piece of cheesecake. I mean, you don't have to go to those extremes. That's a bit much. Yeah.
But again, something we don't actually practice, but again, it is part of our mythology and stuff.
Yeah, it is. So please, if you're following a particular pantheon, Greek, Norse, Egyptian, Roman, Native American, Celtic. What else do we? I mean, that's tip of the iceberg, right? Sumerian, whatever it is. Do your anthropological diligence and read about the people. I know it may it's a little boring, guys. I mean, it is.
I mean, some of these papers read about trying to eat sandpaper.
Of course, because it's like written by some professor from Columbia University back in 1962, and you're like, ugh! but it is necessary. It is necessary to have a full understanding. Otherwise, we are no better than anyone else, just blindly following some text.
Well, I think I'm out of coffee.
Damn. I gotta switch to decaf, maybe.
Thanks for listening. Join us next week for another episode. Pagan Coffee Talk is brought to you by Life Temple and Seminary. Please visit us at lifetempleseminary.org for more information, as well as links to our social media: Facebook, Discord, Twitter, YouTube, and Reddit.
We travel down this trodden path, a maze of stone and mire. Just hold my hand as we pass by a sea of blazing pyres. And so it is the end of our days, so walk with me till morning breaks. And so it is the end of our days, so walk with me till morning